Today you're going to learn how to make a Hollywood-level blockbuster fight sequence that smashes box office records through the power of scientific storytelling. Peter Walters, author of How Stories Work, is now going to show you how blockbuster fights are really 2-minute versions of the traditional Hollywood 3-act structure. So stick around to the end, because Peter's going to reveal the one cheat code that Hollywood writers use to supercharge any fight scene. But let me ask you this. We want to hear from you, the student. So write down in the comments right now, why does the subway fight scene in The Matrix feel so intense to you and so unforgettable? It's not just the punches, the flips, or the sound design. It's not even the dream team of Yuen Wu-ping and the 8711 action design team from Hollywood. The secret is that the scene tells an entire movie story in just a few minutes. There's a setup, rising tension, and a moment where Neo himself seems close to victory until the tables turn suddenly. He's beaten down. A train is seconds away from killing him. Then, in the brink of defeat, he manages to escape. For the first time ever, an agent of the system falls to a mere mortal. Neo survives, and he is reborn. One moment he's out of his league running from the agents. Next, the agents are running from him. It's pure cinematic genius. It's a complete reversal that we would never have expected, and it kept us on the edge of our seats all that time ago as we watched it in the cinemas. That is what makes a story universally legendary and successful. This is the same storytelling engine behind every blockbuster. Tension, reversal, release. A great fight sequence traps you in that tension. You forget to breathe. You're furious, ecstatic, excited, and desperate for your hero to win. Then, when all hope is lost, the entire world is turned upside down and you never even realized it happened. That is pure gold. Pure, raw storytelling power. And if you can master the teachings that follow, that power is yours. Peter will put it in your hands. The information that follows is hard, but it's designed to help you, the student, make history. So don't forget to like and subscribe to Movie Martial Arts for more valuable industry tips, strategies. Without further ado, over to you, Peter.
One phrase that I like to use for structure, for beginning, middle, and end, is this idea: begin, intensify, and turn. Scenes should begin, scenes should intensify, scenes should turn. In fact, your whole movie is one big long act of begin, intensify, and turn. And this is a diagram that I use for story structure, for the basic overall outer structure of a 2-hour film. But I've also discovered an inner structure, a structure that scenes should follow, or sequences, or a collection of scenes if we want to produce story emotions, a pattern that works both on the larger overall structure and in the smaller microstructure. And it's not this. It's not Freytag's pyramid. This is what you find in some older writing books, that stories begin with exposition, they go forward with rising action, they reach a climax, and then there's falling action, and then there's denouement. I think this is totally wrong. I think that, to my way of thinking, I don't think that the climax happens in the middle. I think if you ask any child, where is the climax of a story, they'll tell you that it's at the end. There may be something truly exciting in the middle. There might be a shocking midpoint twist, but I don't think climaxes happen in the end. If we're watching these two people run a race, they may run a race over a dangerous mountain, but we don't know who wins this race until the end, until somebody crosses the finish line. So I think people should stop using Freytag's pyramid, and I think that we should replace those words like exposition and denouement. I think we should just replace them with these words. Stories have a beginning, they transition into the beginning of the middle, they move into the middle, they move to the end of the middle, they move to the end. And instead of a pyramid, I think the 5 fingers of your left hand is a pretty good way to symbolize these 5 stages. Is it 5 stages or is it 3? Well, we know that there's a beginning, middle, and end, but because stories happen in time, they unfold over time, there is a certain point where the beginning transitions into the middle. And then there's a certain point where the middle transitions into the end. So from these 3 positions, we can also see 5 positions. And certain things are going to happen in the beginning. Certain things are going to happen in the middle and the end. But in these transition moments, certain things are going to happen as well. Here's a man, here's an obstacle. He's going to climb up and over it. He's going to come down. We feel certain emotions as we watch characters go through this process. I've been studying how stories interact with the mind, and I've discovered key emotions that happen in each of these stages. In fact, two two key emotions in the beginning, two key emotions in the beginning of the middle, two key emotions in the middle of the middle, two more in the end of the middle, and two more in the end of the story. And I would just like to tell you what they are and show you how you can use this paradigm to write better story structures and write better scenes. I use these symbols that you see now above each of the heads of these figures. You don't have to use my symbols, but I know what I mean, and I'll explain what each of them means. There is a way to write to produce these emotions. There's a way to edit to produce these emotions. There's a way to choreograph action scenes to produce these emotions. And obviously, there is a way to write that won't produce these story emotions. So step one is becoming conscious and aware of what these emotions are. And step two is learning how to produce them in the mind of the viewer or the reader. And the first thing that a good writer does is they grab our attention. But they don't just grab our attention, they convert our attention to interest, because attention can mean two things. It can mean grabbing attention, but it can also mean keeping attention or sustaining attention. So in the beginning, I can grab your attention quite quickly just with a sound or maybe some flashing lights. But after I grab your attention, then I have to keep your attention. That truly will hook you. I need to give you something interesting. I need to give you interesting characters who are going to carry the story. And then I need to create curiosity. A good writer makes us curious. And indeed, if I have your attention and your interest, you will automatically become curious. What's going to happen in the story? And I can focus your curiosity with something called anticipation. It's a writer technique that you want to, don't forget to do before we enter scenes of tension and suspense. We want to frame it first with anticipation, then throw the audience into a scene of tension, elevate that scene of tension into a scene of suspense, and then stretch it out with something called distension. In real life, we try to de-escalate tension, but in stories, we need to stretch it out all the way to the point of desperation. Moving back for a second, distension is a medical term. It means to swell or bloat. It could be your blood vessels or the water surrounding your brain, and you really need relief. Distension causes pain, physical pain and desperation. We're dying for relief. And in a story, that relief is called catharsis. After the writer makes us feel desperation, the writer then earns the right to deliver this amazing story emotion called catharsis. It's usually positive. In some genres like tragedy, it's a different kind of feeling that we produce here at the end. And then finally, the story is going to have a resolution. The scene or story provides a takeaway, like this story of the tortoise and the hare. After the whole story is over, we have a kind of takeaway that the story leaves with us. Let me talk about tension for a second. Tension is any scene of this versus that. It could be protagonist versus antagonist. It could be gravity versus the ground. It could be safety versus danger. Any sort of one thing versus another thing. And suspense is when we add or subtract some hope or some fear. And I'm going to explain this in more detail in a moment, but I just want you to see that suspense is a scene of tension, which we then escalate by adding or subtracting fear. Remember that, because I'll come back to it. Now, hope is established all the way back here. When the audience becomes interested in this character, empathizes with this character, then we hope that that character is going to go through a good story. So it's established all the way back here. Hope becomes focused here in anticipation. They enter this scene of tension. And tension and suspense is a kind of tennis match. It actually could last for a long time. I know that he's dangling on top of the mountain there, but these scenes of tension and suspense are actually long. Distension is the other side of scenes of tension and suspense. So anticipation is like a kind of pre-tension. Distension is like a kind of post-tension. We come out of the scenes of tension and suspense into a scene of desperation where all of our fears are totally realized here. In the end of the story, hope rushes back in, the character is successful, and we get our takeaway. So if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this, just look at this, take a screenshot of this with your brain, and just know that the beginning of a story is all about attention and interest. And as we move away from the beginning of a story and we sort of cross the threshold or we transition into the middle, that's all about curiosity. What's going to become of this story? What's going to become of this character? What's going to happen in this one scene? Anticipation. We want to create this feeling in the audience where they're like, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? The middle is all about delivering suspense and tension, and then we stretch it out with distension to the point of desperation. The whole middle is to bring people from curiosity to desperation. That's the point of the middle. The point of the middle is to eventually build and produce this feeling of desperation. And then we can flip it around into this feeling of catharsis and resolution. So I think if you're designing a full structure, this also helps. Like I use 3-act 8-sequence structure, but these steps here help me with that. But if you're just writing a scene, then this 3-act structure diagram won't help you. And if you're just writing a scene, if you're just choreographing an action scene, then I don't think that the save the cat beats are going to help you either. I think underneath 3-act structure, underneath save the cat, we find this smaller, tinier microstructure of these emotions in this order. And it's as simple as the fingers on your hand. If you can just remember that your pinky is the beginning, your thumb is the end, and if you can slowly just memorize these things, then you will enhance your story instincts and you'll write better scenes for the rest of your life. Attention and interest, curiosity and anticipation, tension and suspense, distension and desperation, catharsis and resolution. Let me show you how it works on a small scale. It can be as simple as this. It's as simple as this. I have a tennis ball in my left hand. I want to toss it to my right hand. What's going to happen? This death-defying action of throwing a tennis ball from one hand to the other. It's a tiny dramatic arc. It goes up, it comes down, it lands on the other side. But I imagine that in this situation, you probably won't feel any suspense or tension because who cares? It's just a tennis ball, right? You won't feel distension. You won't feel desperation. You probably won't feel catharsis because, who cares? I mean, if you drop this tennis ball, it doesn't really matter. Let's change the tennis ball with a cup of coffee. Now, would you literally throw a cup of coffee from one hand to the next? No, you'd probably burn yourself, right? It would hurt. So now it's more dangerous. There's more tension. There's more suspense. What about your phone? I think if you throw your phone to your left hand, you may drop it, you may underthrow, you may overthrow. How can we make this more dangerous? How can we make it more suspenseful? Well, what if I ask you to throw your phone 100 feet in the air and then try to catch it? That's suddenly more dangerous. That's more tense, more suspenseful. Or maybe I could offer you $1 million. If you throw your phone 100 feet in the air and catch it with the other hand, I'll give you $1 million. Scenes unfold in time, and attention and interest can happen quite fast. Curiosity and anticipation can happen quite fast. Then we enter into a scene of tension and suspense, and this may go on for a while. We want to spend the majority of our time in the middle. So the beginning gives way to the beginning of the middle, and then we need to get into the middle, and then maybe the tension and the suspense just keeps going, and then we drag it out, we stretch it out, we make the audience feel desperation, and then bam, we deliver catharsis and resolution at the end. A good gripping scene would probably go like this. So here's a man, and he needs to get from one side of this bridge to the other side of the bridge, but how do we make it more gripping? How do we use the techniques that I just showed you to write this scene or to visualize this scene or to edit this scene for maximum emotions? What can we do to electrify the scene, supercharge the scene? He needs to move from one side to the other. What do we do? Well, we could make the bridge old and rickety and missing. We could just take the bridge right out. How is he going to get from one side to the other now? As soon as I ask the question, how is he going to get from one side to the other? What is that? Well, that's curiosity, right? That's already a kind of curiosity. Now let's raise the stakes. Let's make it more tense. It's not the man who needs to get to the other side. It's this little baby that must get to the other side. For whatever story reason, this baby is Harry Potter or Neo, or he's got the ring on his little baby toe. We must get this baby to the other side. Now we're building in a situation where it's more tense. It's more scary. And his mom is on the other side, and like, how are we going to get this baby from one side to the other? We're just lingering in curiosity. How? And then the mom says, I got an idea, throw me the baby. As soon as she presents an idea, she says, throw me the baby. We've just moved from general curiosity into focused anticipation. He's like, throw you the baby? And they can spend a moment on this. He's not throwing the baby yet, but we can create some anxiety in the audience with this anticipation before he's even tossed the baby into the air. So as soon as the baby is in the air, then I think that we've entered into a scene of tension, right? Tension is this versus that. It could be this side versus that side. It could be dad's ability to throw versus mom's ability to catch. Tension also means baby in the air versus gravity. We have safety versus danger built into this situation here. So how would we write this scene? You don't start by throwing the baby into the air. You start with attention and then interest and then curiosity and then anticipation, and then you throw the baby. So if I were writing this scene, man is running through the woods. Who is he? We don't know. He's carrying a baby in his jacket. Why? He comes to this canyon. There used to be a bridge here. It's not here anymore. I've just moved. How are we going to get the baby to the other side? I've just moved from attention to interest to curiosity. Mom appears, throw me the baby. That's anticipation. He throws the baby. Now what? The throw doesn't look very good. What's going to happen to this baby? Well, let's find out. Tension is this idea of a balancing scale. And suspense is to add or subtract some hope or fear. So how do we add some hope to this situation? How do we add some hope or add some fear or take away some hope or take away some fear? Well, I'll put a snake on the other side, and the snake is very poisonous. And as mom's trying to catch the baby, the snake is coming in as a complication to try to stop her. So this one dramatic action of toss the baby is now becoming a much bigger problem, a much bigger scene, much more emotionally gripping. What else can we do? I can add a bird who is very hungry, and this bird is swooping in, and now the audience is getting even more like anxious. I can give baby a lightsaber to defend himself. Like, let's say it's Baby Yoda, and this is the Mandalorian and someone else. But maybe he drops the lightsaber, and maybe falling action takes the baby all the way down to desperation. And the end of this scene is we failed. We failed. This is a tragic scene. This is a bad ending. We tossed the baby, and there was just too much, and we lost. We lost the baby this time. Using all these steps, you can write a gripping scene. Let's give baby one more chance. Let's take away the bird, let's take away the snake, and let's just put all of our money on dad's ability to throw and mom's ability to catch, and let's see what happens to our baby this time. Little slow motion is always a nice touch of distension. And dad failed to throw the baby correctly, but the god of tennis showed up at the end and helped baby make it to the other side. Let's look at the PDF and how you can use the PDF to, as it says at the top, maximize scenes with these 10 levels of story escalation. Now you know beginning of the middle of the middle, end of the middle, end. And you know that attention and interest are attached to the beginning. Curiosity and anticipation are attached to the beginning of the middle. Tension and suspense define the middle of the middle. Distension and desperation define the end of the middle, And we end the scene or the story with catharsis or resolution. And it's kind of like, where are you now? Where are you stuck? What did you just write? And what should you write next? And this is a kind of periodic table of story elements. These are techniques for grabbing attention, techniques for making people interested, techniques for making people curious. And the list is longer, but this is all we have room for on the PDF this time. And the first thing you want to do is grab attention. You would choose one of these things or anything that you feel is attention grabbing. It doesn't have to just be these things on the list. Now that you're aware of this pattern, this process, you can watch movies and you can think, wow, that really caught my attention. I'm totally going to use that in the future. What about converting attention to interest? How are we going to do that? How are we going to make the audience curious? How are we going to make them anticipate? How are we going to create a scene of tension, suspense, distension? You just go through the list and you choose. In a romantic comedy, you introduce the characters. There's romantic chemistry. People are interested. What's going to happen? We have general romantic intrigue. We're curious. Are they going to get together? In the middle, the movie explores love versus hate. At some point, there's going to be a threat to the relationship. The audience will begin to feel this is never going to come together. It's not going to happen. They're going to break up. And then in the end, of course they get back together. Of course they do. And then there's some sort of thematic takeaway. Men and women can be together if through compromise. Maybe that's the point of your movie. And you can take those things and you can sprinkle them into the overall structure. You just put them here, and it gives you an idea for an overall structure. You can use this pattern for the overall structure or for the inner microstructure. When I do my 3-act, 8-sequence structures, I focus on generating attention and interest in the first sequence, and then curiosity and anticipation. You can see that I just follow the steps. Sequence 3 is all about tension and suspense, but lower stakes in general. Sequence 4 is all about distension and desperation, leading to some sort of shocking midpoint twist, some sort of huge reversal or midpoint right in the middle. Things escalate. We enter scenes of tension and suspense again that are higher. We go into distension and desperation until the end of Act 2B, until everything fails. Normally in sequence 7, I will just repeat all of the story emotions. This is the showdown, the end of the film. The characters are going into the climax and we want them to win. The story is going to eventually produce some catharsis and some resolution. So that's how you might use these techniques for your overall story structure. And once you have your general spine, you can add more elements. Like in a rom-com, maybe we start in a beautiful location. The two leads are very beautiful, but they're different in some way, right? Contrasts, opposites, incongruity. And maybe we have thematic polarities, which means like, what sort of themes are we going to explore? Maybe she works too much and he doesn't work enough. Do we empathize with both of these characters? What hopes and fears do we have? What apprehensions do we have? What arguments, what fights are they going to have? Conflict of empathy means just in a rom-com, again, like I worry about this guy. I worry about that girl. I like them both. I'm not sure who should win here. Unexpected or unforeseen obstacles. She gets called away on business. Slowly crush hope. He won't chase her. He won't go find her. Delay. When are they going to kiss? At least not now. Apprehensions realized. You flesh out your romantic comedy with all of these kinds of scenes that we know. There's going to be an emotional payoff in the end. It's going to be heartwarming at the end. There's going to be a new normal at the end. We see that the characters have changed and grown. Their friends have to react, right? Social reactions. And a marriage is coming. A relationship is coming. This is how you can use the pattern to flesh out your romantic comedies. That's overall structure. Let's talk about using the pattern to write just one scene, because it's a pattern that works on the large scale and a small scale. It's a fractal. How are we going to build this one scene? Well, we can start with some sensory stimulation, some noise to bring people in, some action, some movement. We like this character. We don't like that character. We understand his motives clearly. We know what he's trying to do. There's risk. There's stakes. What is he doing in here? Why isn't he going out of the Matrix? Why is he fighting Smith? What's happening? Unknown agents is a good way to create curiosity. Make sure that the audience has expectations, apprehensions, hopes, and fears. You could present or underscore the stakes. That's a good anticipation technique. You can't go in there because there's a ninja in there, right? You're underscoring these stakes. If we fail, then the whole world is lost. What sort of this versus that can you create? It can be a fight. You can increase and decrease hope and fear by adding a snake or a bird or a lightsaber. You can make it more dangerous by any of these techniques. An unexpected, unforeseen obstacle, dangerous location. They suddenly start fighting on top of a train, right? Stretch it out, cross-cut parallel action. We show people fighting here, show people fighting there. Those are all distension techniques. Maybe you introduce a real clock or maybe a metaphorical clock. Maybe he's bleeding, and that's a type of clock. Any sort of slow motion, a brief pause, blood, broken bones, bodily gore, all these things make us despair. Apprehensions realized, unfulfilled expectations, all is lost. In the end, when the scene turns, satisfaction, getting what was hoped for, that's a positive catharsis. Sometimes shock. Wow, emotional payoff. We get the intellectual answer. He is the one. Neo won. Visible growth. He was struggling to fight. Now he's a badass at fighting. The social reactions of Trinity, Morpheus, Tank, everyone else. He is the one. He is the one. Yeah. So all of those scenes that I just showed you, instead of appearing over the course of the whole structure of your movie, maybe that's just a collection of scenes that all work together here in sequence 7 for the showdown. And as you write your scripts, you'll literally try to grab attention in your opening paragraph and then convert it to interest and then create yet more curiosity and create anticipation. You'll literally try to write like this. And just here's a very obvious example. Police cars race down the street and surround a house, lights and sirens flashing. What technique is this? Clearly, it's trying to grab our attention. We introduce a character that hopefully we like. I'm not going to read all of this, but you can push pause and you can look at how this scene was written. It's very obvious and very on the nose. There's a literal bomb. There's a literal ticking clock. But see if you can spot what attention techniques, what interest, curiosity, anticipation techniques, what is happening in each of these moments? And can you write scenes this way? Of course you can. Can you choreograph action scenes this way? Yes. And how fast do you move through these emotions speaks to your pace. So if you're writing a cozy literary sleeper, you will go through these emotions slower. So this is the major takeaway. Just know that these 5 stages from beginning of the middle, end of the middle, and end, just know that those 5 stages all come with writer techniques that we can employ to make the reader or audience more engaged, and use the PDF as inspiration. But find your own techniques for grabbing attention. Find your own techniques for escalating tension to suspense. And just try to remember what these steps are and look down at your left hand and say, this is how I should write my story.
Troy here, thanks for watching Movie Martial Arts. If you want to level up your skills in acting, stunt work, filmmaking, hit subscribe, follow along, click the video to my right on this screen and learn more practical exercises, career tips, help you stand out and land work. I want you guys doing what you love, and that's what this channel's all about. So stay cool, check that video out, and I'll see you in the next one.